welcome back to Yard. Today we are doing another Scrapyard. They seem quite popular at the moment, so we'll give another go with this Triang Princess class. And it's a bit of a mess. It's no motor, it's all cracked to bits. It's been repaired several times by its previous owner, but I thought this would make a nice Scrapyard example. And if you've seen the thumbnail, which I'm guessing you would have, you'll know that it's going to go on a low loader. So we'll be doing that a bit later on in this video. So let's get rid of the body. They're not attached at the moment, and we need to just do a few repairs and some little modifications just so we can crack on. So here we go. So first thing we're going to do is to get rid of this boiler door, and just using this this drill bit here, 16 mils, you can see, which is just ever so slightly smaller than I needed, but that's what we had. And just got to be careful with these plastics on these, because they rather than drill, they melt. So take your time, go slowly. And while this part is off, this is where the buffer goes. This is the buffer bar. So just doing a little pilot hole in there. I've got some steel buffers, that cast buffers, that will kind of fit in there, and they look okay. They're going to be covered up anyway, so I just want them for the form. So we'll glue the bits back on and just make the front well, I was going to say good, but we'll make it better. It'll be the correct shape. I say it's going to get covered with the bits and pieces anyway, so it's just to create the shape and the form. And then here is a kind of representation of the inside of the boiler, which I've just made from a piece of resin. So this is a little design which is done quickly. It's probably not accurate. I'm certain it's not accurate of this particular Loco anyway, but it kind of gives the effect that we're after. So I've glued that into place, and then underneath I've just stuck this piece of clear plastic, and we've painted it all black just so we can see what it looks like. And then this this repair on the top was protruding a little bit too much, so I just want to knock it back a little bit. It's not really that important because it's going to get covered with lots of rust and powders. So so before we do that, we'll just put some chipping medium on the side. This is just to let some of the red show through once we've got the rust on. I don't want it to be completely rusty, but it's just a plain plastic body. It's a bit naff, to be honest, but then, you know, that's what you got at the time, I suppose, when this was around. But once we've painted that, we can then chip it back and reveal some of the red. Now the front part will keep in black, so I'm just going to mask that off quickly, and then we'll cover everything in a rust colour. This is just the base coat, so this is just a brown rust from the Vallejo range. Can't remember the actual shade of it, but it's just anything brownish to make a start with. So we're going to use the powders to get the effect properly in a little bit. Now, because the body wasn't flatted back, or it wasn't properly keyed, probably it wasn't totally necessary to use the chipping fluid, because the paint won't adhere to the body too well. So but this is just in case we did. I wasn't sure at the time if I'd need it or not. Probably could have got away without using it, but anyway, we'll crack on. So we're just putting some different rust colours on, just to make some variation along the body. If you look at old Locos that are rusted, they're not going to be the same colour all the way along. You might find that one or two panels are completely different colour to the rest. They may be a different shade of rust. They may have like a white powdery coating on it. So just try and mix it up a little bit, just to break up the monotony of that brown. So I'm putting some of this orangey light rust along sort of edges, and, you know, places where joins where rust would begin, I guess. So with plain water on a brush, we'll just try and get rid of some of that rust, just a little bit, and reveal some of the red livery underneath. Just going really gentle with this, just plain water. Just let it soak for a couple of seconds, and then you can just brush it back. So as I say, we've got chipping fluid on this. Probably wasn't essential to use the chipping fluid, as it's not properly bonded in anyway, not sort of keyed into the bodywork. So while that's left to dry properly, we'll just carry on with this chassis and the wheels. Now we're going to glue this straight, so we want this to obviously be all the wheels to be straight. And we've got these wheels at the front, and we just want to glue them so they so they go in a straight line, because on the back of the wagon they're going to be totally straight, because they're going to fit on the rails on the back of the wagon. So we'll just glue these into place. There's probably different ways of doing this, but I've just used this black super glue. So this is quite a slow drying super glue. It gives me a chance to position it properly once it's on the rails. And then just to make it a bit more secure once it's on the back of the wagon, if we just glue a couple of the axles in place, so so it doesn't allow it to sort of roll forward or bring any movement into it, because it would just break itself free in the end from the back of the low loader. So back to our brown. This is the lighter of the rust colours. We'll just coat everything in this particular colour. We need to try and get rid of all that bright, shiny silver, because the condition of this, we're going to have this. It wouldn't be there won't be any silver. Everything would have rusted totally, I guess. So we're going to cover as much as we can. Go all around the tops and the bottoms, making sure we get in everywhere. So that's the first coat done, and then we'll just mix it up with a couple of different colours. I've just mixed a little bit of black into this to make some darker tones. And then you can go around with some black in places where there may have been grease and oils and that sort of thing, if that's what you want to do. But we're going to use powders to make these colours pop out a little bit in a while. So just before this stage, which we're doing now, I've actually sealed the whole of the body in a satin lacquer. It's probably not gone as I should have used a matte lacquer. To be fair, would have been better, but we've used satin on this one. It's just really it's an enamel lacquer, so it has hopefully stuck everything down and made everything secure. But anyway, on this part of the front we have sprayed just a very light coat of grey, which we're just brushing back just to give it a patina and a bit of age on it, and the same on the body there. And you can see where where I've gone quite sort of roughly with the varnish layer on top, and it's sort of blobbed out just a little bit to give a bit of a texture. So now onto some powders, just to give a little bit more realism. And these are the powders that I use on most things. So we've got these four sort of browns and yellows at the front. They are Vallejo rust tones. That one is kind of ecru, I think that's called, some sort of dust. And then we've got soot over on the far left at the back, and then the Humbrol dark earth in the middle, which is just a general sort of dirt weathering powder. So we're going to start off with the darkest of the brown rust from Vallejo, and this is this is going to cover most of it, I think. I generally start with the darker colours and then just add in some highlights of the lighter colours as we go. So trying to be a little bit kind of random, because rust doesn't always follow a pattern as such. So still using the dark brown. And then we'll add in some of the brighter oranges and the lighter rust colours. And the yellow looks a little bit odd when you first use it, but once it's blended in, and you've got sort of little highlights of the yellow here and there, it does create the correct effect. It's quite a nice one to use once you've tried it a few times. And don't forget, when you use when it's all sealed together with a varnish or a lacquer, the colours are going to mix together a bit more and mute down. They're just pigments at the end of the day, and they will sort of blend just a little bit, and that's kind of what we're after. We don't want that's such a harsh effect. So I'm not going to pay too much attention to the front, because I know that a lot of it's going to be covered, but we'll get a bit in there anyway, because we're not totally sure where the tarpaulin that's going to go on there is going to cover that. But just following the same format, so we start with the darker brown and then the lighter colours, and you know, these whites and yellows for little highlights. The white will almost totally disappear. It just will leave a slight sort of haze, I guess, on the end when we finish. And then into the boiler box. So let's get a bit of view. Now this is going to be, I assume, quite rusty inside, so we're just going to go straight in with the bright orangey rust. And then a bit of the yellow as well. So just to help the weathering powders bond into the top of the Loco, because I really should have used a matte, but I used a satin varnish on this. A matte is much better because it grabs the powders nicer. So I've just used some varnish from the airbrush. Just use a bit at a time so that it's still wet, and then the powders will stick onto that much nicer. And I'm just dabbing it on rather than brushing it, as you see. And then once we've got something that we think is right, we'll give it another coat of varnish just to seal everything in. Now it might look like we're using quite a lot of powders here, but this kit of the Vallejo Rust, let's say there's 4 in the pack. I've had them for maybe the best part of 2 years, and I do quite a lot of these. If you watch other videos, we use them on nearly everything. I'm probably only about halfway through, so they last an absolute age, such a long time. And we're going really heavy on this. We wouldn't normally go as heavy as with the powders if you've watched other videos, but this is obviously heavily rusted for a particular reason. So yeah, don't be too worried about using your powders. So there we go. That's our finished well, with the weathering. So we need to add in a few accessories. Now the detail in the cab is not particularly nice, so we're just going to mix it up a little bit, and we're using this corrugated sheet. This is these are aluminium sheets. They're from eBay. Can't remember where I bought them from, to be honest with you, and I struggled to find them in my purchase list. But anyway, they're you can find them on eBay. They're at 15 in a pack for a couple of quid. And they're just a foil, so they bend really easily. I've just glued that into place, dented it up a little bit, and we'll add some rust colours in. Now, if you're doing this on yours, you could maybe paint it in a grey shade to represent like galvanised zinc or something like that, because they're normally galvanised, these things. Or you can paint it and add some graffiti on or whatever. But a lot of this is going to again be covered with a tarpaulin in a little bit. I just wanted it for just a little bit of added interest, just something a little bit different. So I've just painted it in our rust colour, and we just rub it back a little bit, and then the rust gets caught in the grooves, in the corrugations. And this is the beginnings of our tarpaulin. So this is just plain paper from the printer. I've just cut a square about the size that I want, and you'll see how I'm going to hang it in a bit. But I'm going to crease it before I put it on this time, because I know it's definitely going to have definite creases the way it's going to hang. So just to give it a start, it makes it a little bit easier. Once this is wet, it will tear quite readily, as you've seen in other videos that I've done. There's normally a little tear here and there, but we can disguise that sometimes. So it's going to hang kind of like that. So it'll be tied at one end to the to those, I don't know if it's the whistles or the valves at the front, and then just sort of drape over it. Now we're using a thing called paper shaper. So it's this fluid in this bottle. Just need to search in your local model shops on online. Everywhere seems to be out of stock at the moment. So it's quite an expensive bottle. It's about £7 or something for quite a small bottle. And some of the videos I see, they seem to soak the paper in. I don't think you need that much, and it's a bit wasteful. So I normally just put a few drops over it and then just brush it in to get it all totally wet. And you'll see the paper will sort of change, it'll go a bit translucent, you'll see patches appearing a little bit, and then you know it's kind of wet enough to start to mould. But as they be careful, it will it becomes soft, and it can tear easily, especially at the corners. So this is how we're going to hang it, if you can see past my fingers. So we can drape it from the roof over the back of the cab roof, and then it'll just hang down the back, something like that. And you can mould it into shape. And once it dries, takes a few hours, best to leave it overnight. It will set quite firm. Yeah, it takes a new shape. And if you need to, you can just put something heavy in the way just to hold it in place until it sets. And then we can paint it a bit later on. We'll do a similar thing on the front. This one's going to be attached to the chimney in a similar fashion. Let's just fold that again. So this is going to hang down the side and then sort of wrap around the front. Just like that. And we'll put some supports on there, some straps or ropes to hold it into place, so it doesn't look like it's just sitting in mid-air. So that's draping down the side and across the front, hiding the crack and the repair on the front. Something like that. It looks a bit weird at the moment being plain white. It looks like a piece of paper, to be fair. Hopefully once it's painted it will look a bit better. So I didn't let this dry overnight. It is best to let it dry overnight. It's still ever so slightly damp, but we're going to paint it in, and I'm using an airbrush initially just to get the bulk of the paper covered. You can do it all by brush if that's what you choose to do. It's just a little bit quicker for me with the airbrush, just to get the main part filled in, and then the rest we'll do with a very tiny brush using the same colour. Just make sure you get all around and underneath and behind all the bits that you think you'll see. And then we need maybe some extra colours just to make a bit of contrast on some of the folds and the creases. I'm just going to wipe that back a little bit with a brush just to blend it in a little bit. It's probably a little bit lighter than I would have liked, but we've got some other layers for this in a minute, so hopefully that will cover it up. And then with our airbrush we're using our Vallejo Smoke, which just gives this sort of yellowy brown sort of haze, so it's quite a nice useful colour to use. And then on for the strapping, these are from Scale Model Scenery. These are ratchet straps, and these are I think they're called red, but they're orange. And we're just going to super glue them into place. It's just to make it look like it's been tied on the top and then blown away. And the same at the back. We'll do a very similar thing at the back as well. And we'll just glue the strap into place. Once it's dry, we'll wrap it around and secure it. And then this final one at the back, which I'm just going to leave hanging in the middle of nowhere, basically. I'll trim it to size once it's dry. So onto the truck. So this is an Oxford die-cast low loader. This is one of the Stobart Rail models, and they're quite good value actually. They're £25 or so, I think. So, but they're quite nice. And we're going to stick some rails on the back. You could use these low loads for anything, so you wouldn't always have rails on. But we're going to stick this into place. Something like that. And these extend quite a way out, so your modern locos, class 66 and so on, you can easily get on the back. It's huge. Once it goes double the size of that. So in this little bit at the back, there's normally some bits and pieces knocking around, some tarpaulins and pieces of wood and chain and rope and whatever you have to hand. These are just some bits I picked up from the side. We've got some wooden planks which are resin printed. Piece of paper which is folded like a rolled up tarpaulin, I hope. And for the rails, I've taken them off. These are Pico ones. I've just stripped them out, cut them to size, and it's just easy for me just to glue on this piece of card, and we'll just spray it in with a brown. And then I'll just wipe the top back to make it look like the rails still shiny at the top. Now for our wood, this is cast in like a cream resin, as you see. So I wanted this to be like an old faded wood. So we'll start with grey, which always looks a bit strange to start with, but hopefully it'll work out fine in the end. And then we're going to dry brush in some of the dark brown, and this will pick out, then you can see the edges and some of the detail, the grain detail that's in this particular casting. And then just to add tiny highlights on, we're going to use off-white. Again, we're just dry brushing it in. So if you've not dry brushed before, really useful technique. Just make sure you've got almost no paint on your brush. You need to put a little tiny bit on and then wipe it back, until you think there's nothing on there, and then do a little bit more because there still will be paint on, and then just brush it across, and it will just catch on the edges and any raised detail. Looks it gives a nice effect. It's a very useful effect. And then we've got a bit of weathering powder just to finish it off. And then the tarpaulin, we are going to just give this a quick coat of the same olive grey green that we've used on the rest of the tarpaulins, just to kind of tie it all in together. So we're going to concentrate just on the low loader part. We're not doing much work on the actual the tractor unit of this one. This is a Tamiya sponge, so this is a sanding sponge, 600 grit I think it was. But it's just to key in the shiny paintwork, so our paints and weathering powders will stick to that, and obviously on that that sort of that steel plate, which is like a barley sort of thing, checker plate. It just takes the top surface off and just gives it a bit of a worn look. So we want that to look a bit sort of used. The cab will be pretty much left as it is. They've got you know, this sort of a fleet like Stobart's has got a certain pride, and generally speaking, I think their cabs would be clean. So I don't want to upset any of the Stobart employees. So we'll leave it relatively clean. But the low loader, maybe not. Maybe we'll make that a bit dirtier than the tractor unit. So I'm just using a mix of grey and brown, just to simulate my version of road dirt, really. And as soon as I put it on, I'm just brushing it back, just to create a little bit of texture and inconsistency along the body there, along the low loader. Now you can spend a bit more time, and you can do the whole of the underside in whatever colour you choose. You can take the wheels off and get, you know, proper into there if that's what you want to do. This I think this is sufficient for what we want for this particular one. Now it may have been easier to take the low loader off of the tractor unit, but I couldn't work out how to do it, to be honest with you, and it wasn't really that important, so I left it on in the end. I didn't want to force it and break it, but there's probably some technique, and I'm sure it's very simple. So we carry on with the other side, doing the same sort of thing again, and you can use different colours and more colours. I went over it very slightly with a brown just on the wheels, just to mix up the dirt colour a little bit, just after I shot this part of the video. So for the cab at the front, we're not going to weather too much on where it's too dirty. I'm just going to add a bit of grime just to the lower surfaces, just sort of the where you'll get sort of splashes from the road. Generally speaking, I'm going to leave this fairly clean. The tyres will never be completely black, so we're just going to colour them in a little bit. And again on the front, and we'll just brush it back ever so slightly. And then while we've got the brown in the airbrush, we'll just add a little bit of weathering A little bit of dirt onto the back of the low loader. So the rails are now dry, and we're going to super glue them into place. I'm using the black super glue again because it just it gives me time to adjust it. We need to make sure these are parallel and at the right distance to fit the Loco on in a moment. A little bit too much super glue there. Let's get rid of that. Pop that into place. Now, knowing that I'm going to have to move this, I've got a debonder to hand, so this will just clean off the super glue once it's dry. But that's a pretty good guess, so it seemed to work out just right. Perfect. So we'll let that to dry. It's a slow dry in that one, and we'll crack on with something different. So using the all the resin parts, we're going to super glue these into place. If you're using this on your layout, they haven't necessarily got to be glued in. You can just place them in. This is going to be shipped around, I guess, if this gets sold. Just want these to be in place. And we don't want it too tidy, too uniform. I suppose it needs to look a bit casual, where the tarpaulin like this has been thrown in, and it's it's not quite straight. Let's just move that. There we go. Something like that. And then we've got a piece of chain to go in there next. You can go to town with your wagon. There's loads of stuff you could add on. Sort of different containers like barrels and all sorts of things. And you can strap it onto that back plate there as well, I guess, couldn't you? I just wanted to get a few bits in there just to mix it up a little bit. Now I'm using the quick drying super glue. Got to be careful when doing chains. So many times I've put some super glue on the chain, and before it's actually got to where it's going, it's set, and then the chain is rigid rather than like a chain anymore. So I've had to abandon it and start with a new piece. So just try and put a little dot on of where it's going to go, and then just lay the chain on it. It works out better that way. And just a little bit down there to finish it off, and that's it, it's done. So I've not painted the chain at all. We're just going to add some weathering powder on in a moment, but you can again take a bit more time and paint the chain in rust and grease colours if that's what you're fancying. But just use a little bit of powders here, a little bit of weathering powders. A little bit of rust on there perhaps, just to take the shine away. And then some powders on the back there, just to grime it up just a little bit more, just to blend the rails back into the bed. And you can see where I've used the debonder. That will a lot of that will clear up or be obscured, or just end up looking like a grease mark, which is fine on the back of this. So this is just a Vallejo matte varnish, just to tie everything together and to make it a bit more user friendly, so it doesn't come off when you handle it. And there's the Loco. Make sure it fits, which it does, which is great. Now I'm going to glue this into place on your layout. If you're doing something like this, you don't necessarily have to do it, you can just place it there. But again, if this gets moved around or shipped out or anything like that, then it needs to be secure. So I'm just going to glue this on using the quick dry and super glue again. Don't need to put it on all the wheels, but I guess the more the merrier. And hopefully we'll get it on first go. It does dry really quick, this one. There we go. Probably going to go a bit further forward. It's just hanging off the edge of the rail. You can just see there, but hey ho. No Scrapyard Loco is complete with that. Some writing on, so scrap is quite obvious. And that circle with a cross, I think that means scrap as well. And then put some chains on. These are just glued in at the top and then glued underneath, cut to size. And then wrapped around the front as well, which you'll see in the final shot. And that's it, pretty much done. So there we go. I hope you've enjoyed that one. A few different bits and pieces in there. Hopefully some food for thought. Again, thanks for watching us here on Bunter's Yard. Thanks for joining us. It's lovely to see your comments. Any comments you have, please leave down below. Always great to see them. And we'll see you next time at Bunter's Yard.